Well, compared to the NFL wildcard playoffs, this weekend delivered to the truest extent of what we could hope for in NFL playoffs. For one, we got a classic, an instant classic with the Packers and the Cowboys. I'd say Sunday's games are better than Saturday's games. We're going to really talk about this first clip. We're going to talk about Green Bay and Dallas. When people say how close this game was from not necessarily start to finish, the numbers back it up. And it's correct in saying 2016 Divisional Round. We understand it took place in the year 2017. But you really can't get any closer than that. And when you watch that game, it had one of the most memorable last 4 minutes.
Memorable. There's got to be another word.
Memorable.
Yeah, that's what it's.
Thank you.
Yeah. I forgot we're doing sports.
You humble me. You humble me, Michael Shure. In the last 4 minutes of that game. And I thought there was some parity here because all season long, we discussed how kickers, you can just pick them up off go to your local college and sign any guy if your kickers don't. And a lot of this weekend came down to the most clutch kicking.
No, it's true, but and it's not, Roberto Aguayo was picked with a draft pick by Tampa Bay this year as a kicker, and his kicking was fine, but it wasn't. I mean, he missed a lot of key
second round worthy.
No,
picking.
That's the thing. I mean, you pick a kicker in the second round, that wasn't really worth it. But then yesterday you had we'll get to that game later. But you had Mason Crosby, you had Dan Bailey, and then Pittsburgh's entire offense was 6 Chris Boswell field goals, and we'll talk about that game later. But yeah, you're right. Kicking matters.
All right, so let's get into this game itself. For one, of course, this is the most trending picture. He Michael Jacksoned the sideline, as Twitter called it. This same Jared Cook and I really wish J.R. Jackson was here. This same Cook who dropped pass after pass on the Los Angeles Rams. Well, at that point, the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear. I'm glad J.R. Jackson's not here. But that's true. Jared Cook was nowhere this year. They didn't really use the tight end like they could have. A lot of people thought that was part of their slow start, as they didn't have that weapon. Rodgers earlier in his career had Jermichael Finley. He had other big, and Cook had good years, but was inconsistent and was also hurt. Right. And so for him to make that catch on that perfectly thrown ball. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. I mean, maybe the most perfect post-game, big game throw. In certainly in Green Bay's history, but I think in a lot of NFL. I mean, I remember actually it was Alex Smith throwing to Vernon Davis. Yeah, that was an amazing throw in Green Bay to win a playoff game. But this throw was was just fantastic. And and Cook did what he had to do there with that Michael Jackson, keeping the feet in. And
it's unbelievable how that came about, and especially when there was a vine that kind of captured some in-game footage, which I don't think we can use because of copyright. Well, that's a nice meme of Dallas taking an L, but because as House of Highlights on Instagram put it, the internet is ruthless.
Right.
But in terms of the vine, they were showing in the huddle, and a lot of the talk from Cenk Uygur, my boss, is that Mike McCarthy should still be fired. And I was on the Mike McCarthy fire bandwagon, I think since 2009. I've wanted this guy gone. But in this situation, in that game, I don't think Mike McCarthy should be fired. I don't think Mike McCarthy coached a bad game. I think Jason Garrett coached a bad game. And no, he should not be fired either. But when we talk about the coaching and conservative play calling and maybe taking your foot off the gas in the Packers sense, it wasn't as bad to me as Jason Garrett, like we were discussing before the show. You got a running back who every time he touches the ball is leaping over guys and cutting around them for 6.5 yards. Yeah. Seemingly looks like every play.
And Jason Garrett he's an offensive coach, so you kind of dance with the one who brung you. It didn't necessarily work. It's not always going to work, but it certainly didn't work yesterday all the time. I think the most questionable thing he did was spike the ball with a minute left. I mean, more than the play calling, because you could look at, and then go back to Mike McCarthy. He was the 49ers offensive coordinator. I couldn't believe he got a head coaching job. And then he did well, and he had Aaron Rodgers, and he had, he never has really had a running game, and he still figured out how to make offenses move without a running game. I think, at this point you say he's a really good coach. I disagree with Cenk. I think that, yesterday he made some mistakes in that game, and he makes mistakes in other games.
Find me one coach who saved for Belichick from start to finish where we go, man, what a perfect game coach there by...
Right, well, exactly. And not even save for Belichick. I mean, there are games when you look at Belichick and you're like, well, why is he doing that? Why is he calling this play? Why are they... I think they don't use their timeouts as well as other teams. So, I think there are reasons to get lists, but he's essentially a perfect coach.
Right.
But everybody expects perfection now, so we live in a fire the coach world, and that fire the coach world goes everywhere. It goes to fire the manager when you're at a rental car place and it's taking too long, and everything is like, it's because we have remote controls and we just change channels and everything is. So I sort of tune that stuff out. I tune jank out a lot too, just in general. So, but
who are you left with? JR's not here. Tune and jank out.
I got you and Dan, and that's all I really need.
Man,
so
all right.
That's good.
That. So nice of you. Such a different aspect when Ben's here and you're here. I kind of just sit in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Who's Ben?
Right. Bandwagoning off to Atlanta.
No,
actually.
but it was an incredible football game, and it was they were down 18 points for a lot of the game. That were the Cowboys. The Cowboys came back. Dak Prescott, man, the poise that this kid has in playing in this kind of a game. I don't think I remember a first-year rookie quarterback having a playoff game like this.
Not like this. And he did, I think, 3 touchdowns. Was the first to be done by a rookie in his debut playoff game.
Right. Brady had good games.
Brady had good games, and I also remember, I think Roethlisberger, he might have been a sophomore though, but an inexperienced guy in the playoffs who played above his pay grade. I mean, and everyone talks about $500,000 a year for Dak Prescott.
Right.
It's the most bargain deal you can get at quarterback. But and again, I think that there's been a lot of extreme hot takes over the Cowboys. Was their season a failure? No, because.
How can you say the season they were supposed to
win?
Like
I was telling you, Stephen A. Smith before this morning it was a catastrophic failure. I go, your rookie quarterback and your rookie running back went 13-3 in a of always competitive division.
Right.
Got a number 1 seed in the playoffs, and you lost to arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, who played one of his greatest games of all time.
And your starting quarterback in the preseason was hurt and out for the year, so you were forced into starting a rookie who had to learn this offense at the same time as learning the NFL. Right. You had injuries on the offensive line. I mean, I can't fathom how anybody says this was a failure, and that's not because I'm a 49ers fan and they were 2-14. It's because it was. The Cowboys exceeded expectations.
I guess
in that division, by the way. Sorry,
no, of course,
in that division, the Redskins, the Giants. I mean, and even the Eagles, who got off quickly this year.
There's no easy game. I've always said this about the NFC East. It's always a toss-up, but there's no easy game. It's not easy to play in New York, to go to Philadelphia, to go to Washington, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Plus, there's also quality quarterbacks, offenses, and defense. I mean, it's like standard good top-to-bottom division. That the team that usually comes out of it tends to somehow find a way to make some noise in the NFC playoffs. So, we talk about this, it was a bad spike.
Yeah.
So that's when I think it's okay to come out and go, well, man, he's a rookie quarterback. Like, it's not something I think Dak Prescott will do again.
He didn't do that on his own. Do you think he called that?
I think he was following orders, I'm sure, in that situation.
Yeah, there's no way he called that on his own. But so
can you imagine if the boss would be like, no, we can't spike it here, and just did I've always said this, do the fake spike every time.
Yeah.
How great would that? Just send your receiver,
throw
it up.
And it works every time it happens, which is rare. But
the other thing also I guess we should touch on, too, is there's so much criticism for Des Bryant. Always, and there's always the battle over is he an elite receiver. You know what? Dak Prescott leaned on the right player in that game.
Totally.
And of course, Ezekiel Elliott and that offensive line creates space in every.
But still, I mean, that's not what you said is
true. He was everywhere,
independent of that.
Des was everywhere, and he was reliable. His hands were there, and for the first time in a playoff game, there wasn't a point where Des made a great catch, and they're like, well, we don't really know.
Right.
2 years ago, this is a catch, but now, not a catch.
And here's why the Cowboys' season was also successful, is that they turned people who have lived their whole lives hating the Cowboys into people who kind of like them because of Dak Prescott. Like, I think that there's the Dak Prescott, and I'm speaking only for myself, but I've spoken to other people as well who feel the same way, that they're, a lot of it has to do with how toxic the Redskins and Dan Snyder are too, that it puts them in a different light. Jerry Jones is all of a sudden much more palatable. But how do you not root, how are you a football fan or a sports fan and not root for Dak Prescott?
It's tough because I really like Dak Prescott, Ezekiel. I've always been on Des Bryant's side.
But you're in
I like Sean Lee.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him play in a playoff game, even though he's like one of the most fragile linebackers of all time. I don't like the Cowboys.
But you can't. But you come from a different place because
objectively speaking.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't say they're a bad team.
But there is not even bad. But it's easier to find things to like about a team that I hated more than any other team except for the Philadelphia Flyers my whole life. then it's that's kind of success right there.
It is.
Because Dak is cool.
We have to get to our executive producer, Dan. His favorite meme of the day is a good one, and it includes Aaron Rodgers. Man,
Look at that. That's pretty great.
The Jerry Jones one's very good.
Yeah,
Is Dak's head really that? Is he really that meaty?
Yeah, I mean, when he takes his helmet off, he's
right.
Oh wait, yeah, that's pretty funny. I think they should be careful with that stuff though, because the Packers now go to Atlanta, and
man, we're talking about the internet. The internet is the most overreactionary. The second, think about it, like Ezekiel Elliot, like eating L's. Like you're talking about a rookie who's going to run for 10,000 yards in the next 4 years.
Right.
Not really, but
yeah.
Le'Veon Bell might though, and we're gonna get to that game in just a second. So. Man, the internet is really ruthless. All right, comment below, like, favorite, subscribe to the video. It goes a long way. At Emmett, is it Michael? Just at Michael Shure on Twitter.
Michael Shure.
He's a good follow. I say that. He's a good follow. He's a good sarcastic follow. He's good at the quote tweets.
Good at the quote tweets.
Yeah, you take the tweet that somebody says and you.
Oh, yeah, and then I comment on them?
Comment on it.
Good at the quote tweets.
Good at the quote tweets. Michael Shure. Compliment of the day. At JCRU91, and we'll see you next time.